You can do every affirmation in the abundance journal. You can manifest, you can list your desires, you can repeat the words, money flows to me easily and effortlessly until you actually believe you mean them. And nothing will likely change because the part of your nervous system that decides what is allowed in your life is not listening to your affirmations. Not until you've done some work around them. It's listening to your history. Those histories that get us every time. Welcome to Pulling Threads. I'm Leslie, and today we are doing something a little bit different than what we've been doing. We are breaking away from all the relationship and divorce and that kind of talk. And this is going to be a little bit longer episode than I usually do in a solo cast because the topic that we're pulling on doesn't have a clean center. It has roots, it has lineage, it has clinical layers and spiritual layers and somatic layers. And I want to walk through all of them with you because this is a walk I am personally on and a journey I am on. We're going to talk about abundance and issues people have around abundance. And I'm going to be talking a lot about my own issues because this is actually a part of my life that I am really working on and really trying to better understand. We're talking about why most of us, even those of us who do the inner work, like myself, who read the books, who meditate, who say the affirmations and believe in them, and even write down their manifestations, still feel a quiet ceiling we can't seem to push through. We're talking about why money is the most loaded subject in the human experience. And we're talking about why the work around this subject actually has to happen in the body, in the parts, in the nervous system, and yes, in the spiritual register too. This is going to be a science meets spirit episode. We're going to talk about internal family systems, EMDR. We're going to talk about Gabby Bernstein and her abundance work and the 21 Day Abundance Challenge that I'm currently in, and the money block hypnosis from my favorite website, To Be Magnetic. We're going to talk about complex trauma, legacy burdens, what we inherited from our parents and maybe our grandparents about money, and how divorce, that great revealer of everything we did not want to see, can become the most accelerated abundance journey you've ever taken. So get comfy. This is going to be a long thread to pull, but I promise it's going to be worth it. Let's get into this. And I'm not going to lie, this is definitely an issue that I want to avoid and I've tried to avoid. But there does come a point in your life when you want abundance in all areas. I definitely feel like there are areas of my life where I feel wealthy and abundant, like in my relationships. But there are other parts specifically related to money that have not been budging. So we're going to go in and really dig deep. So here's the part of the abundance conversation I think most of us are not being told clearly enough. You can't think your way into expansion if your body is convinced that expansion will get you killed. Sounds dramatic, I know. But the traditional abundance frame says change your beliefs and your reality will change. Believe you're worthy of more. Believe money is easy. Believe in your magnetism. And there's truth in all of that. And I believe all of that. The mind matters. Magnetism matters. The story we tell matters. But there's a layer underneath the story, and that layer was not written by the conscious mind. It was written by experience. It was written before you had language. It was written by what happened in your house at age 4 when the bills came. It was written by your mother's face when she opened a credit card statement. It was written by the silence at dinner the night your dad lost his job. For me, it was written when Rent-A-Center knocked on the door to take our furniture, and I had to hide with my friends. Embarrassing, devastating, and it didn't just happen once. Maybe it was written by your grandmother who hoarded sugar through the war. No amount of journaling is going to overwrite a survival memory. This is why so many people feel like they're failing at manifestation, especially around money and abundance. They're not failing, they're doing the work in the wrong space where they haven't done the underlying work yet. They're talking about the conscious mind when the part of them that's actually running the show is much further down. It's sitting in the body, it's encoded in the nervous system, and it has its own reasons, every single one of them protective, for why it does not want to let abundance in. And it's really freaking frustrating because it's hard to get to it on your own. It's hard to find it. And at least in my situation, and I think in many people's situation, you feel like you're doing everything right. So why? Why is the ceiling not moving? Because money is never just money. And I want to say that again. Money is never just money. Money is one of the few subjects in human life that touches almost every dimension of identity. It touches our family history, our gender conditioning, touches our survival memories. It touches our sense of worth, our private definitions of safety, our beliefs about morality, our relationship to power, our religion, our spirituality, and for many of us, our trauma. That's a lot of weight for one subject to carry. When you sit down to do the abundance work, what you're actually doing is unspooling all of those threads at once. That's why it feels overwhelming. That's why people give up. That's why we avoid it. That's why we go in circles for years. We're trying to handle the whole tangle, when what we actually need to do is name each thread and meet each one with the right tool. But that takes a tremendous amount of work and help doing the work. So in this episode, we're going to do that work in slow motion together. We're going to look at each layer, what it is, where it came from, and how it shows up in your life. And then we're going to talk about what actually moves it, so that if any of this resonates, you could take it to your therapist or your coach and start doing the work in the areas that seem fitting for you. We're going to start with the beliefs and the issues that we have around abundance and money that we got from our family. All right. In internal family systems language, which is one of the modalities I use in my own work and in my therapy practice, I find it also very powerful for money. There's a concept called a legacy burden. A legacy burden is a belief, a fear, a feeling, or a rule that you carry, but that did not originate with you. It was absorbed, inherited, it was handed down through your family system long before you had the awareness to consent to receiving it or the ability to remember receiving it. So you might be carrying your grandmother's belief that women are not safe with money. You might be carrying your father's belief that wanting more makes you greedy. You could be carrying your mother's belief that abundance always comes with a hidden cost. That if you have too much, life is about to take something from you. That was something I grew up hearing. That if things started going really well and you started feeling safe and comfortable and secure with money, the rug was going to be pulled out from under you. Those exact words. You might be carrying a belief your family has held on 3-4 generations, that money corrupts, that wealth is for other kinds of people, that having less is morally cleaner than having more. Very common belief. I feel like I also grew up looking around at people who had a lot of money, and there was a sense of you don't belong with them. And I think in my little mind, it was you don't belong with them, so they must be bad. Um, that was not mine. That was definitely passed on to me from my mom. These burdens, they live inside what IFS calls protective parts. And these parts are everywhere in our money lives once you know how to look. There's the part that overworks to stay valuable, the part that, for me, believes that no matter how hard you do work, you'll never make enough. The part that under earns because somewhere it learned that earning too much would make you alone or make you a target or make you unrecognizable to the people who raised you. The part that gives money away too quickly because being generous feels safer than being full. The part that spends impulsively because abundance feels foreign and the body wants to discharge it. The part that hoards because the nervous system genuinely believes that scarcity is right around the corner. There's a part that distrusts wealthy people, the part that distrusts itself when it has money, the part that quietly believes that staying small is the price of belonging. None of these parts are bad. This took me a long time to get and really believe, right? These parts are not flaws. They're not character defects. They're not evidence that you're doing it wrong. These parts protect it. They were trying to keep you close to the people who raised you inside the system that shaped you. They were trying to keep you safe inside a context you didn't choose. Until they trust that you carry your own safety now, they will continue to run the show. It's not a failure of mindset. That's loyalty. A loyalty does not bend to affirmations, unfortunately. That would be so easy if they did, but they don't. So we also want to talk about trauma layered on top of this. So now if we layer complex trauma onto all of that, all of those parts that we got from our families, for those of us who grew up in environments where safety was inconsistent, where love came with conditions, attention came with a price, where being too visible or too successful or too anything brought punishment, criticism, withdrawal, jealousy, banishment, the nervous system learned a very specific lesson. It learned that expansion equals threat, that taking up space is dangerous, that being received, being seen, being full, these things are not safe. When abundance becomes neurologically dangerous, the body suppresses it. You will not allow yourself to be visible enough to make more. You will not allow yourself to hold more without sabotaging it. You will not allow yourself to receive without paying for it somehow by overworking, overgiving, or quietly suffering. We mistake this often for laziness. We mistake it for lack of discipline. We mistake it for proof that we're not meant for more. What's actually happening is that the body learned how to survive in a particular environment, and now it's still using those same rules. The body does not know the environment has changed. It doesn't know that you are no longer 4 years old. It doesn't know that the person who shamed you for wanting is no longer in charge of your life. Until you show it that slowly and somatically, the protection will hold and the ceiling will stay right where it is. Almost every abundance issue I've ever worked on in myself or the women that I coach has roots in the parental relationship to money. Watch what your parents did, not what they said about money. If your father said money was important, but lived in a chronic state of financial fear, you learned that money is dangerous to want. If your mother said abundance was a blessing, but flinched every time the credit card statement arrived, you learned abundance is laced with shame. If your parents fought about money in front of you, your body associates financial conversations with relational rupture. If they were silent about money, if it was a secret, hushed, never discussed, your body learned that money was something shameful, something to be hidden, something dangerous to look at directly. Some of us grew up watching one parent control the money completely while the other had no agency. That teaches you something about gender and power and survival that no spreadsheet will undo. Some of us watched our parents work themselves into exhaustion for very little money. That teaches you that effort and reward are disconnected. I can relate to that one so much and many others, but my mother worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, often in a factory, in a horrible, hot, disgusting factory. I can still smell her smell when she would come home. It was a rubber factory, rubber for cars. And there was never enough money. Never. She made so little, and she would always take overtime. And what I observed was that this person that I loved and cherished was literally working herself to death. And we didn't have enough. The bill collectors were calling. Rent-A-Center was coming to the door. There was never enough money, even though she worked and worked and worked. Meanwhile, my dad left and he never contributed. She was on her own. She had no choice. Some of us watched our parents lose everything in a divorce, bankruptcy. That happened too. Just before the divorce, my parents lost everything in a bankruptcy. And we went from what seemed like a very safe and secure and affluent life to constant worry about money after that. I think we were sheltered from the worry before the bankruptcy. It wasn't discussed in front of us, but afterward, there was no way to hide it. And, business failures and things like that happen when we're children, and we watch that all play out. And the body files that under abundance is unstable. And it's not guaranteed. And then there's a deeper inheritance, the things that came from before our parents that we talked about before: generational poverty, immigration, war, famine, religious teachings about wealth and worth, cultural messages about who is allowed to have. You don't have to remember it for your body to be carrying it. That's what makes it a legacy burden. It's not a memory, it's a transmission. I want to get specific about the gendered architecture of all of this, because women and men inherit different money wounds and we have to treat them differently. So what might resonate to some women might not resonate for men, and I want to make sure we're speaking to everyone. For many of the women that I work with, the wound is shaped by what I've come to call good girl conditioning. Be useful, be needed, be quiet about wanting, do not be too much, do not be too loud, do not be too rich, too ambitious, too independent, because those things are not feminine, and those things will make you unlovable, and those things will get you labeled in a way that hurts. The money wound for women very often runs through desire itself. Women have been taught across centuries and cultures and religions that wanting is dangerous, that women who want more are women who are going to lose what they have. So we minimize, we underprice, we discount, we say, I don't need much before anyone has asked. We give our work away. We do free consult calls. We let them go as long as they want. We let other people set our value. We make ourselves smaller because smaller has been historically safer. There's also a worth wound underneath this that many women have been conditioned to believe that their value is contingent on what they give to their families, their partners, their children, their communities. So receiving is foreign, receiving is unsafe, receiving is a violation of the role we were assigned. Receiving is hard. And that is a big problem in this world we're living in, where many of us are supporting ourselves. So as a woman, to be out in the world as an entrepreneur in business, if receiving is difficult for you because we were taught it was a violation, how do we survive? To allow money in is to allow ourselves to be full, and fullness was never modeled for many of us. It wasn't something that was allowed. This is why so many women I work with say things like, I just want to be comfortable. That's the safe ceiling. Comfortable is allowed. Wealth is not. Comfortable keeps you palatable. Wealth makes you visible in ways the body doesn't trust because everything we've just talked about. Men's architecture can look different. Not always. Don't want to generalize too much, but men do tend to carry a different shape of this. The provider equation is one that most men I've worked with are still living inside. I'm worth what I produce. Their abundance wound rarely sounds like deserving. It rarely sounds like I'm not enough to receive. It sounds like I am not enough to provide. I'm not enough to carry this. I'll be discarded if I can't carry. The shame underneath the male money wound is often invisible because it's not allowed to be spoken. Men were not given permission to talk about financial fear the way that women sometimes are. They were told to handle it. They were told to figure it out. They were told that talking about it is weak. Anything weak is off limits. So they carry it alone and they carry it in their bodies. It shows up as overwork, anger, resentment, withdrawal, addiction, inability to rest. Shows up as a nervous system that can't downregulate because downregulating feels like failing at the job they were given the very day they were born. For many men, the abundance work is not about whether they deserve more. It's about whether they are allowed to need help carrying any of it. It's about whether they can let someone else, a partner, a community, a higher power, themselves, share the weight. Both inheritances are painful for men or women. Both are real. Both are quiet and subtle and can go unnoticed. Both of them will shape what we allow ourselves to receive in very different ways. Now, I want to talk about divorce here because in my work, divorce is one of the most efficient surfaces for abundance wounds to come up. And many of the women and men that I work with that are going through divorce are dealing with these wounds. Whatever you've not done, whatever work you haven't done around money is definitely going to surf in this situation. Whatever protective part has been quietly running your financial life will definitely be exposed. Whatever beliefs about safety, worth, dependence, and provision that you absorb from your family, is going to be activated in ways that you can't dodge during a divorce. For women who organize their financial lives around a partner, even partially, even invisibly, divorce reveals every place that they outsourced agency. It reveals the part that didn't look at the bank statements because looking felt like a violation of the relationship. The part that let someone else decide what was fair. The part that didn't advocate because advocacy felt like betrayal. Underneath all of that, very often, is a deeper fear. Am I capable of carrying my own safety? Did I ever know how? Can I trust myself? For men who organize their identity around providing, divorce can be even more destabilizing because that role that they were given by the culture, be the one who carries this, is being restructured. They're often being asked to give money in a way that doesn't feel like a provision, but feels like a loss. They're being asked to redefine their worth outside of what they earn. And many men have never been given the tools to do that. And many of them never thought that they would have to. Most of us don't go into marriage thinking we're going to get divorced. So divorce for both partners pushes the abundance work into a much more compressed timeline. It surfaces what mindset alone couldn't reach. Like many things, when we go through hard things, it brings up to the surface the parts of our life that we need to work on. It's also, in my experience, one of the most accelerated, unburdening experiences that a person can move through. Meaning, if you let it, if you give yourself the right tools, you don't have to numb out, right? You can try to work on it when these things come up. But it's going to take some work and some digging. And I am 3 years post-divorce and still doing this work intensely. And to be honest, I think I'm just now facing it head on. So what do we do with all of this information? Because probably 20 of the things that I've just named apply to me, maybe more than that. Well, let's start with internal family systems because it's my favorite modality to work in. The work in IFS when it comes to money is not to fight your parts. It's not to override them. It's not to make the parts that hoard stop hoarding. The work is to get to know each part, to approach it with curiosity, to find out how old it is, what it's been protecting, what it's afraid will happen if it stops doing the job. Almost every money part I've ever met in myself and in my clients has a story. I started doing this when you were 7 and your dad lost his job. I started doing this when your mom cried over the grocery budget. I started doing this when you realized you would not be helped if you didn't figure it out alone. These parts that we talk about are children mostly. They're children who took on adult jobs because they had to. When you can sit with them and witness them and let them feel for the first time, let them feel that they're no longer alone with this burden, something extraordinary does start to happen. They can start to put it down. But in my situation, in my case, it has required me to remember what those children went through. And that's not fun. Remembering the feeling of seeing bill collectors at the door, the rent center truck outside wanting to take our furniture back. Those aren't memories that I want to relive, but when I have, it's allowed me to face those parts and those children and help unburden them and help them realize that we're not in that situation anymore. That's what unburdening is. It's not a thought experiment. It's not journaling. It's a felt somatic, often tearful release of something that was never really yours to carry in the first place. A little girl, 10 years old, shouldn't be responsible for answering the door when the furniture collectors come. But she was. And she took on several burdens because she had to do that. But understanding what protections she put into place and allowing her to rest and put those aside has been extremely therapeutic for me. And sometimes we have to face those old memories in order to let those younger versions of ourselves rest and know that we're okay now. Once it's gone, the protective behavior does soften. The part does not have to overwork anymore. It doesn't have to under-earn anymore. It doesn't have to keep you small anymore because it knows you're safe now. And it knows the truth, that it's safe to earn. It's safe to have abundance. It's safe to have the life that we want to live. We have to tell ourselves that, though, and we have to update all of the parts because there's typically not just one. That's what the message is in this episode. It's not just one part. It's not just one thing to work on. Every time I do money work, either in Gabby Bernstein's program, in my own IFS therapy, in EMDR work, or even in the 2B magnetic work, different memories come up, different storylines, and different reasons why I believed it wasn't safe to have money. If IFS is for the parts that are still carrying old jobs, EMDR is for specific memories that locked those parts in place. EMDR works on the discrete, sometimes very small moments where money meant danger. The eviction, the argument at the kitchen table, the day your father came home and couldn't speak, the day you realized your mother was hiding cash from your father or your father was hiding it from your mother, and whatever story you told yourself about that. The moment you understood as a child that your family did not have what other families had, something happened. You told yourself a story. The moment your worth got tangled up with what you could earn, you formed a belief. EMDR allows the brain to reprocess those memories so that they no longer carry the same charge in the present. You don't forget them, you just stop being run by them. The body finally completes the response it was not allowed to complete at the time when you were a little kid. The memory becomes a fact instead of a live wire inside of you ready to trip. EMDR during my divorce was critical for me. My biggest fear when we were divorced was that the money that I would get from the divorce and after the divorce, I would just give it away or blow through it. And I had to do a lot of EMDR to feel even safe and comfortable accepting and taking that money and being responsible for it. When you combine IFS and EMDR, you can move something that years of mindset work and self-help reading just can't get to. You're working at a layer where it actually lives. This is the work I do on myself with my therapist. This is the work I do with my clients. And it is impactful. And many of them don't realize how much they're holding themselves back. But they definitely don't remember where that holding back came from. There's one more layer, and this is the work I've personally been doing lately. And this is the subconscious layer the deepest subconscious layer. It's the layer where beliefs were installed before you had language to challenge them. It's the layer that affirmations sometimes scratch at, but rarely can fully penetrate. To get to it, you need tools that bypass the analytical mind. And I've been working with Gabby Bernstein's recent Abundant Challenge app, which uses guided meditations and short daily lessons to begin shifting the subconscious relationship with money. I'm also starting the Money Block Hypnosis from To Be Magnetic, one of my favorite websites, and their expanded podcast is incredible. And this summer they're doing something called the To Be Seen Challenge, which I'm also going to do, all because I recognize how much I'm holding myself back in ways that just don't feel like I can think my way out of. These tools work in a different register than IFS and EMDR. They're not retrieving specific memories. They're not unburdening individual parts. They're speaking slowly and repetitively to the deeper, substrate where your beliefs about what is possible lives. And I want to be really honest about why I'm using all of these together, because I don't think any one modality is enough on its own. Even as a therapist, I think that when we combine multiple things and get all the tools, each one does something that the others can't. IFS gives you access to your parts and helps you get your parts feeling comfortable. Obviously, I'm too comfortable. EMDR gives you the memories. Hypnosis and meditation give you the subconscious. Mindset and conscious belief work give you the frame. You need all of them. Used in concert, paced by your nervous system with someone or something supporting you. That's how the work actually moves. And I'm already seeing it move. It's been a few weeks that I've been really digging into this work. And I feel it moving in my system, and I see it playing out in the world. More client calls, a lot more client calls. Suddenly, something just feels lighter. Like there's something that was holding me back that isn't anymore. And I know some of you are listening to this and thinking, Leslie, you just talked about polyvagal theory and EMDR in the same episode as Gabby Bernstein and hypnosis. Pick a lane, choose something. I'm not going to be picking a lane. And that's true in many, many aspects of my life. The work of becoming magnetic and of learning to receive and trusting that what you want is also wanting you. This is not in conflict with my trauma work. It's the same work named in different registers. My human design, manifestation in the most grounded sense of the word. It's what becomes available when your nervous system can finally hold expansion without flinching. And that's what we need. We need to understand our design. We need to understand our systems. The body has to feel safe to receive before it'll allow anything more in. You can call that polyvagal regulation. You can call it frequency. You can call it energy. You can even add in art of attraction here, because I definitely believe in that. I want to speak what I want to happen to me. I am very careful with my words. You can call it magnetism. You can call it surrender, alignment, presence, grace. They're all pointing at the same thing. The integration of science and spirit is not a marketing posture for me. It's how the work actually moves in real human lives, and it's how the work has moved in my life in many different areas. It's just, I'm just reaching a place where I have the capacity to do the work in this area, because like I said at the beginning of the episode, this is an area where deep, deep wounds live. I don't believe you have to choose between being grounded and being magical. I think the truly magical lives inside of us. And I think the people who are the most magical are the most grounded. And the most grounded lives are the ones that haven't been amputated by their mystery, right? Okay, so I know this has been a lot. So before we close, I want to give a few concrete starting places if you want to do your own work around abundance. First, notice your money parts. Not all of them, just one, two, three, map them out. The next time you feel a charge around money, when a bill arrives, when you check your account, when someone asks you what you charge, when an opportunity comes in, pause and ask yourself, which part of me is online right now? How old does it feel? What's it afraid of? You don't have to fix anything, just notice. Second, get curious about what your parents modeled for you. Not what they said, what they did. What was their relationship to receiving, to spending, to wanting, to worth? You're very likely carrying a version of it. Naming it is the first step in choosing whether to keep it. My mom and dad had very different money issues, but both of them had money issues. So when I was working on this with IFS recently, I wanted to address my mom's stuff, but my dad's stuff got in the way and kept coming up and saying, no, 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 look at this. It wasn't money at all. It was fear of failure. Third, pick a tool and start small. A daily meditation, a short hypnosis, a weekly IFS session, an EMDR consult, Gabby's challenge. It's called the Abundance Challenge. It's in an app, very easy to use on your phone. The To Be Magnetic website. There are lots of things to work through in there, but they have a great money challenge. Whatever is calling you, the work is not choosing the perfect modality. It's being consistent with the work. And fourth, stop blaming yourself and shaming yourself. What looks like a money problem is almost always a safety problem, a worthiness problem, or a lineage problem. Those are real things, but they can be met. They can't be met with shame. It can only be met with gentleness, and the gentleness that they were owed the first time they came around. This is the work I'm going to be doing. If anything in this episode hit you somewhat true, I suspect it did for some of you, because abundance work has a way of finding tender places. I want you to know that this is the kind of work I'm doing on myself, but it's also the kind of work I do every day with women that I coach inside the Loom Life. We work with the parts. We work with the legacy burdens. We work with the nervous system. We work the financial and the emotional realities of divorce, if that's their situation, of midlife reinvention, of becoming someone who can actually receive. There was a time in my life when I'm pretty sure that this inability to receive robbed me of an opportunity in a career that I could have been very successful in. But it shut me down. That career shut me down because the amount I was going to receive, I just didn't feel worthy of it. And I still believed money was bad, receiving money was bad, and people who had money were bad. So I was living a life with a lot of abundance and the inability to accept and receive it in a healthy way. So my nervous system was always on fire. I thought for other reasons, but I think this really did play a huge role. understanding that and having an awareness of it is now giving me the ability to do something different and to be more open to receive and to keep doing the deeper work and keep finding more answers, keep being curious. If you want to explore whether that kind of support is right for you, you can book a discovery call at the Loom Life slash loomlife.com/discovery call. The links are all in the show notes. I would love to hear your stories of your abundance journey. If anyone's doing any of these challenges, I'd love to hear from you and hear how it's going. I did Gabby's first night lesson and meditation and got 3 new clients that called me the next day wanting to do discovery calls. Since that first day, now I'm on day 5. Since that first day, I've had multiple calls and people signing up to do my podcasting course. So whatever the block, you want to call it a block, whatever the underlying belief system, the work in her program alone is really helping. But again, I'm also doing this in the IFS therapy, and I'll be starting to be magnetic soon. So I'll keep updating you and letting you know how it's going. I'd love to hear from anyone else who's doing similar work, who has done it in the past. We love hearing stories of people who have figured this out before, and sharing it helps others. So thank you for listening. Thank you for going deep with me on this one. I know it's a little bit different than my usual stuff, but I think it might be a more common topic that we hit. So I think it's important. Take care.